In this Easter morning episode of Gav Details, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This is the home ec version of Gav Details. So, obviously, everybody's experiencing something a little bit different these days with the kind of state of the world. So Easter is a little bit different for me and my family since we're all kind of, keeping our distance, staying away. So I am going to be making a staple for usually Thanksgiving, maybe not so much anymore, but Christmas and Easter breakfast is a Mama Gav specialty. So I'm going to be trying my hand at making it. So we have our Spam ready to go. We've got bacon ready to go there. We've got our eggs, our hard-boiled. I'm going to be peeling those, and then I'm going to be making the roux and the cream sauce for the quote-unquote creamy eggs. We also have our most important item of the day, coffee pot. So I have everything pretty much set up, all of the ingredients ready to go. So if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So I'm going to make sure that I have everything ready to go, because you do not want a lumpy cream sauce and you do not want to burn the sauce. You need to continuously stir. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to melt, not bring to a boil, but melt the butter. So we're going to put it on a lower fire. It's already been kind of sitting out, so it's warm. We're using the Kerrygold Irish butter, and it's already starting to melt, as you can see here. I'm going to do my best to kind of keep an eye on the camera and what's going on here. So the hard-boiled eggs have been peeled. They're ready to chop up in the cream sauce. The bacon and the Spam can kind of cook at the same time. Once we're ready to go here. Coffee needs to be heated up, but we can take care of that. So, per Mama Gav, if you have a metal whisk, you don't want to use it on a Teflon pan. So we're going to be using a spoon. You can use a plastic or a wooden spoon, or whichever one you have. So the butter is melting nicely, and then we're going to have to add our flour. You don't want to add the flour all at one time because you want to prevent lumps. So slow and steady, continuing to stir. We do have a cup of half and half in the microwave. We're going to warm it, not bring it to a boil. You don't want it to get frothy or anything like that. You want to make sure that it's just lukewarm, and that should also help prevent clumps when making your roux or your sauce here. So the butter is almost completely melted. And of course, in the true Gav Details fashion, we will be cleaning the stovetop once we're done cooking, because of course, we like everything clean. So, definitely on a low fire here. As you can see, let's see. Maybe that's a little bit better with the surface light there. So as you can see, all of the butter is melted in the pot. Now we're going to slowly stir in, slowly add the flour. So as you can see, the roux here, as we're starting with the butter and the flour, is starting to thicken up. It's going to be kind of like a paste. That's why you definitely want to add the flour a little bit at a time. I was making a nacho cheese sauce the same way, and I kind of just dumped all of the flour into the butter, and it was pretty much a mess. So we're not wanting to do that here, so we're going to add, and we'll break this up into half here. Add this little bit. We already have our milk warmed, lukewarm. It's actually half and half. The recipe calls for milk, but I have half and half. So there goes the rest of the flour. As you can see, flour's done. So I have successfully limited or prevented anything having clumps or being lumpy here. Definitely going to be multitasking, so now we're going to dump in our milk very slowly, continuing to stir. So I cut the video off there, added the balance of the first cup of milk, salt and pepper to taste, and perhaps a secret ingredient, which we will not be disclosing because, well, sometimes things need to be, you know, how did they make that? Well, it has that special ingredient. So, I'm not going to bore you with continuing to stir. That's pretty much what you need to do. The sauce is going to thicken up to a pudding-like consistency. I'm going to continue to add a little bit of milk per the recipe, and I'll come back to you. Okay, so after a couple minutes of continuing to stir, you can see that the sauce is starting to thicken up here, so we're going to start adding a little bit more of the half and half. If you hear any crackling, that's the bacon in the microwave. You want to add the milk or the half and half slowly. We do not want to just dump it all in there. We want to make sure that we're continuing to stir so that it doesn't burn. Again, we're going for the consistency of pudding. So you want to make sure that you're not just stirring the middle of the pot. You want to make sure you're stirring around the edges, because that's where it could kind of collect and start to burn or stick, and then you'd get lumps. and that's the first minute of the bacon. If for any reason you are unable to continue to keep stirring, either shut the fire off or remove the pot altogether. So if we shut the fire off, move the pot, I'll check on the bacon. Still it's got a little bit to go. I'm going to move back over. Again, we're working on a low fire. I have it on a regular sized burner at about a 2. So it's a slow process, but the end result is definitely worth the time and effort. Okay, so after what feels like, I don't know, a half an hour of slowly adding milk and continuing to stir and continuing to stir and continuing to stir, the cream sauce is pretty good. I'd say it's still a little thin. We're going to continue to mix here. It should be a little bit thicker once it's to the consistency that I'm used to seeing. I'm going to go ahead and cut up the hard-boiled eggs and then mix them in, and then this particular recipe or dish is supposed to be served over toast. So I don't like soggy toast, so I do not butter my toast after the bread comes out of the toaster. I prefer to just put the creamy eggs over the toast, and then, you know, obviously the toast gets kind of soft anyway. So no buttered toast for me. My mom and dad prefer the buttered toast. So as we continue to stir here, we can see it's starting to thicken up. Just a little bit more patience here with this recipe to continue to stir. You know, when you grow up and you start making food like this, you kind of have a larger appreciation for mom and dad, because they, you know, you start figuring out how long certain things take and how difficult certain things are to do, and you say, wow, man, all those years they made it look so simple. So that's a shout out to all the mom and dads out there. So still a little thin. I'm going to keep mixing here, and I'll come back when I'm cutting up the eggs. Okay, so as you can see, the consistency is now pretty thick. I removed it from the heat. I'm going to keep stirring, but I'm going to start cutting up the hard-boiled eggs here. Make sure I can see what I'm doing. So to make sure that I don't overload with eggs, I'm going to stir them in and hopefully be able to kind of eyeball it on the eggs to cream sauce. I'd say probably 4 or 5 hard-boiled eggs here. Trying not to massacre the eggs, and also not trying to make sure that I have small enough pieces. Again, watching mom do this over the years, like seamless. So that's what a creamy eggs looks like right there. So that's pretty good. So we're going for egg number 4. pretty good, but you know what? Since we got this 5th egg here, I'm just going to go ahead and slice it up. Alright, now that we have this mixed up, the sauce will continue to thicken. That, everybody, is what creamy eggs should look like. So now we have the toast. Toast is done because it's a little bit further inside of the toaster. You want to use your toaster tongs. We're going to take the bread out, the toast, now that the bread is toasted. So you have your toast, like I said, not buttered for myself, and we're going to take a heaping scoop of creamy eggs. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Easter breakfast. Creamy eggs a la Mama Gav. So, after eating, I'm going to go ahead and clean everything up because that's what I do, Gav Details. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And for more detailing videos, please hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to see more home ec editions of Gav Details, leave it in the comments. Thanks.